The storm that brought him home was 30 feet underwater when I realized the guy I'd just pulled from a capsized sailboat was the same person who'd been sketching my face in a coffee shop for 3 weeks. Strait. The recognition hit me as we broke the surface. His eyes, even panicked and saltwater burned, were unmistakable. Those same dark green eyes that had looked up from a battered sketchbook every time I'd ordered. My usual Americano at Tidewater Roast. The same guy who'd always smiled nervously and looked away when I'd caught him staring. Now those eyes were locked on mine with pure survival instinct as I hauled him toward the rescue basket. Pacific November rain hammering our faces while 40-knot winds tried to rip us apart. "Stay with me," I shouted over the rotor wash as the MH-60 Jayhawk hovered above us. His fingers dug into my rescue harness with surprising strength for someone who'd just spent 4 minutes in 40-degree water. I'd expected him to be dead weight, most civilians are, but Noah Hayes, as I'd later learn his name was, clung to consciousness like it was the last espresso shot on Earth. The hookup took 12 seconds. 12 seconds of his body pressed against mine in the basket, both of us shaking from cold and adrenaline, his breath coming in sharp gasps against my neck. Then we were rising, spinning slightly, the angry gray-green of Puget Sound dropping away beneath us. His sailboat, a little 26-footer called Arabica, rolled turtle in the swells below, already half sunk. Inside the helo, Petty Officer Rodriguez wrapped him in thermal blankets while I did the vitals check. Hypothermia stage 1, maybe early stage 2, responsive, lucky, so damn lucky. You're the Coast Guard guy, he stammered through chattering teeth, recognition flickering in his eyes even as shock tried to pull him under. From my café. Yeah, I said, checking his pulse. Fast, but strong. And you're the artist who can't draw hands. His laugh came out as a cough, but it was a laugh. You noticed? How could I not notice? For 3 weeks, every morning at 06:30 before my shift, I'd stopped at Tidewater Roast on Pike Street. Every morning, he'd been there behind the counter, pulling shots with the focused intensity of a surgeon, creating foam art that was too pretty to drink. And every morning, when he thought I wasn't looking, he'd sketch me in that journal, always erasing the hands. But wait, don't miss what happened next. Because this is where it gets interesting. We touched down at Station Seattle at 1340 hours. Standard procedure, debrief, gear check, paperwork. I'd pulled 17 people from the water in my 2 years as an aviation survival technician. This should have been rescue number 18 routine. File it and forget it. Except at 1920 hours, there was a knock on the station door. Noah stood there in borrowed clothes. Pike Place Market tourist sweatshirt, 3 sizes too big. Jeans that weren't his, holding 2 paper cups with the Tidewater Roast logo. His hair was still damp, curling at the edges. He looked like a drowned cat trying to pretend everything was fine. "I thought you might need this," he said, offering me 1 cup. "It's not regulation temperature anymore, but it's the good stuff. The Ethiopian natural process, the one you always order." I took the cup. It was barely warm, but he'd remembered. "You're supposed to be at Harborview under observation." I signed an AMA, against medical advice. Stupid, but somehow perfectly in character for a guy who'd taken a sailboat out alone in a small craft advisory. I needed to say thank you. Properly, not while hypothermic and incoherent. You weren't that incoherent. I told you my boat was named after coffee beans. Liam, I was very incoherent. He knew my name. Of course he knew my name. I'd been ordering coffee from him for weeks, and my name tape was right there on my flight suit. Can we talk? Just for a few minutes? I should have said no. Should have cited fraternization policies that didn't technically apply, but felt like they should. Should have maintained professional distance. Instead, I grabbed my jacket. There's a spot on the pier. 5 minutes. The rain had softened to that signature Seattle mist, the kind that doesn't fall so much as exist in the air. We walked past tied-up response boats, past the 47-footers that weren't my world. I was a swimmer, not a boat guy, until we reached the end of the dock where the city lights started to shimmer on the water. "I'm a different person when I'm sailing," Noah said, staring out at the sound. "On land, I'm the guy who burns his hand on the roasting machine and apologizes to the coffee beans. On the water, I think I'm some kind of adventurer. Today, the water won." He turned to look at me, and in the sodium lights, his eyes were more gray than green. "You saved my life." "It's my job. Don't do that." There was an edge to his voice, not anger, but something firmer. Don't minimize it. You dropped into 40-degree water in a Force 8 gale to pull out a stranger. That's not just a job, that's... He trailed off, looking for words. That's who you are. No one had ever put it like that. Most people thanked me and moved on. Some sent cards. One woman had baked me cookies. But Noah was looking at me like he'd seen something essential, something true. The sketches, I said, because I needed to redirect this before it became something I couldn't name. In your cafe. Why my hands? He smiled, and for the first time since I'd pulled him from the water, he looked genuinely relaxed. Because your hands tell the truth about you. They're competent, careful. You hold a coffee cup the same way you probably hold rescue equipment, like you're aware of exactly how much force to use. I couldn't draw them because I couldn't capture that quality. Precision without tension. I looked down at my hands. They were just hands. Calloused, short nails, a scar on my left thumb from a training accident. You got all that from watching me drink coffee? I got that from watching you be. He took a sip of his own coffee, winced at the cold, kept drinking anyway. Also, you leave exactly $1 tip every time, even for a $4 drink. That says something too. Says I can't do math before coffee. Says you round up, not down. Says you think about the person making your drink. He turned to face me fully, and suddenly the pier felt very small. Liam, I need to ask you something, and you can absolutely say no, but I have to ask because I almost died today and life's too short. My heart rate kicked up the way it did before a jump. Okay, can I take you to dinner? Somewhere that's not my cafe, so I'm not your barista and you're not my customer. Somewhere where I can learn what you're like when you're not being professionally heroic. The smart answer was no. I barely knew him. This was happening too fast. Built on adrenaline and survival, and maybe some kind of rescue bond psychology I'd learned about in training. But here's what I knew. I'd been stopping at his cafe for 3 weeks, not just for the coffee, but because those 60 seconds of interaction, his smile, the way he'd ask if I wanted to try a new roast, the secret sketching, had become the best part of my morning routine. And today, in the water, when I'd reached him and his hands had grabbed my harness, something had clicked into place, like recognition but deeper. Thursday, I heard myself say. I'm off Thursday. His smile could have powered the whole Seattle grid. Thursday. There's this place in Fremont, they do small plates, you can actually hear the person across the table. Wait, I interrupted. Before you plan this whole thing, you should know something. His expression shifted, guarded. Okay. I'm still figuring some things out, I said carefully. Coast Guard had repealed Don't Ask, Don't Tell in 2011, but that didn't mean everyone in the service was comfortable. I was out to friends, to my family, but I'd never brought someone to meet the crew. This would be, you'd be the first guy I've taken to dinner. Like, officially? The truly shocking part was how fast his expression softened. Not pity, not surprise, just understanding. Then we'll figure it out together, Noah said simply. No pressure. Just dinner. And maybe you can tell me what it's like to jump out of helicopters for a living, because from down in the water, you looked like you were flying. Thursday came wrapped in typical Pacific Northwest ambiguity. Not quite raining, not quite not. I'd changed clothes 3 times in my barracks room, finally settling on jeans and a dark blue Henley that my sister had said brought out my eyes, whatever that meant. I felt like I was gearing up for a jump, that same mixture of anticipation and controlled nerves. The restaurant was called Tide Pool, tucked into a Fremont side street I'd walked past 100 times without noticing. Small warm string lights in the windows. Noah was already there, sitting at a corner table, wearing a dark green sweater that did bring out his eyes. No borrowed tourist clothes. No hypothermia. Just him. You look nervous, he said as I sat down. I'm not nervous. Your left hand keeps checking your pocket, like you're making sure your phone's still there. Damn. He really did notice everything. Old habit. In rescue swimming, you're always checking your gear. Except you're not wearing rescue gear. He flagged down the waiter, ordered something I didn't catch, turned back to me with that artist's observation. You can be nervous, Liam. I'm nervous too. I made coffee for 6 hours today just to keep my hands busy. That helped somehow. Knowing I wasn't alone in this, we ordered the way people do on first dates, too much food, trying to show we're adventurous but not weird. The conversation started safe. His cafe, opened 8 months ago, a dream since college, my work, 2 years in Seattle, originally from Sacramento. Seattle itself, we both loved it, both complained about it. the usual. But then Noah said, "Tell me about the worst rescue you've done." That's a dark question for a first date. I'm a coffee roaster. I literally make money by controlling the line between perfect and burned. Dark questions don't scare me. I took a drink of water. Stalling. Then, January last year, fishing vessel taking water off the Olympic Peninsula. Storm surge. We got there just as she rolled. Pulled the captain from the pilot house, but his deckhand. We were 30 seconds too late. Noah's hand moved across the table, stopped just short of touching mine, not invading, just offering. I think about him every time I jump, I continued. Wonder if I could have been faster. If I'd seen the vessel sooner in the swells. If you were superhuman, Noah finished quietly, which you're not. Even though you seem like it sometimes? Is that what you see when you draw me? A superhuman? No. He did touch my hand then, just his fingertips against my knuckles. I see someone who carries things, who moves carefully because he knows his actions matter. Who tips $1 on a $4 coffee because someone is worth that to him? His fingers traced a small circle. I see someone I'd like to know better. If he'll let me. The restaurant noise faded to background. The question hung between us, real and solid. I'm not good at this, I admitted. Relationships. I'm gone for days sometimes. Deployments. I live on a station with 17 other people. My schedule is chaos. I wake up at 4 a.m. to roast beans, Noah countered. My hands smell like coffee even after 3 showers. I almost died on a sailboat because I'm stubborn about asking for weather checks. I'm not exactly a prize either. You sketched me for 3 weeks. You noticed me sketching you for 3 weeks and kept coming. Back. Fair point. We stayed until the restaurant. Staff started giving us looks. The kind that said we'd like to close now. Outside, the not quite rain had become actual rain, and neither of us had an umbrella. I can walk you back to your place, I offered. I'm 12 blocks north. Your station south. That's illogical. I jump out of helicopters for a living. Logic isn't my strong suit. He laughed, that same laugh that had come out as a cough in the helo, but fuller now. Alive. Okay, rescue swimmer. Walk me home. We walked through Capitol Hill, past late-night bars and closed boutiques, past the kind of Seattle weird that makes the city itself. Noah told me about learning to roast from a mentor in Portland who taught him that coffee was about respecting the bean's origin, about coaxing out what was already there rather than imposing something foreign. I told him about rescue swimming school in North Carolina, about the moment I'd realized I was good at this, that my body and brain worked together in water in a way they didn't on land. You okay? He asked at one point when I'd gone quiet. I keep being, I said, echoing something my instructor had said during training. A mantra, I keep being. I keep moving forward. Me too, Noah said softly. His apartment was above a vintage record store, accessed by an external staircase that looked older than both of us. At the door, we did that awkward first date dance. Hug? Handshake? Kiss? Noah solved it by stepping closer, rain damp and smelling faintly of coffee and something else, something just him. I'd like to see you again, he said. If that's something you want. Yeah, I said, and my voice came out rougher than intended. Yeah, I want that. He kissed me then. Just once, gentle, his hand coming up to touch my jaw like I was something precious. When he pulled back, his eyes were bright. Your hands, I said stupidly. What about them? They're perfect. You were wrong. They're exactly right. The next 3 weeks unfolded like a carefully pulled espresso shot. Slow, rich building. Noah's cafe became my permanent morning stop, but now there were texts at odd hours. Just burned a batch, tastes like my ego, you alive out there? I found a new Ethiopian bean you have to try. I'd respond between trainings. Very alive, your ego tastes expensive, save me a cup. We fell into a rhythm. Dinner every Thursday when I was off. Coffee every morning I was in port. Long conversations about nothing and everything. He taught me to taste coffee properly, slurping it, aerating it, finding notes of blueberry and chocolate, and things I'd never noticed. I taught him Coast Guard knots, which he immediately forgot but pretended to remember because it made me happy. You're different, my swim partner Rodriguez said one morning as we prepped gear. Lighter, maybe. You got a girl or something?
Something, I said, checking my harness straps. Keeping secrets, Chen?
I looked at him. We'd pulled 15 people from the water together. He'd literally held my life in his hands. Not a girl, Rodriguez paused for maybe half a second.
He treat you good?
Yeah, then that's all that matters. Now check my O2 bottle because I don't trust morning me to have done it right. That was it. No drama, no questions. Just back to work. It made me realize I'd been carrying tension I didn't need to carry. But here's the thing about tension. Sometimes you don't notice it until it releases, and then you notice everything you'd been holding. December hit Seattle like a cold slap. Not the gentle rain, but actual winter. Freezing rain, black ice, temperatures that made the sound steam in the morning. I just finished a 48-hour shift, pulling a kayaker from the Ballard Locks and a drunk boater who'd thought December was a great time for a midnight cruise. Noah had texted, "You awake? Want company?" I was exhausted, salt stiff, running on coffee and adrenaline fumes. The smart answer was no, get sleep, see him later. I texted back, "Station Seattle." Door 7. He showed up 20 minutes later with a thermos and 2 cups. We sat in the ready room, the station quiet around us, just the hum of heaters and distant radio chatter. "Bad shift?" he asked, pouring coffee that smelled like Christmas, cinnamon, cardamom, something warm. "Long shift." "Guy tonight, the drunk one." He kept thanking me, over and over. "You saved my life, you saved my life." Like he couldn't believe it. "You did save his life." "Yeah, but..." I struggled for words. It's not saving if they just make the same stupid choice next week. It's not saving if they don't value what you gave them. Noah set down his cup. "Is this about the deckhand? The one from January?" I'd told him that story 2 weeks ago, over Thai food in Ballard. I hadn't expected him to remember, to connect dots. "Maybe," I admitted. "I don't know. I love this job. I'm good at this job. But sometimes I wonder what I'm saving people for, you know? If it matters. It matters to me." Noah's voice was quiet but solid. "You saved me and I'm still here. I make coffee. I sketch. I'm learning to be less stupid on sailboats. Maybe that's not world-changing, but it's my world. And I get to keep living it because you were there." He reached across the space between us, found my hand. His fingers were warm from the coffee cup. "You matter, Liam," he said. "Not just what you do, you, the way you move through the world, careful and precise. The way you listen when people talk. The way you tip $1 and check your gear 3 times and notice when I'm sketching you." His thumb traced circles on my palm. "That matters to me. You matter to me," something loosened in my chest. Not tension releasing, something deeper. Like a knot I'd been tied in for years suddenly coming undone. "I think I'm falling for you," I said, the words surprising me even as I spoke them. Noah's smile was sunrise slow. "Yeah? Yeah, good," he said. "Because I've been falling since you first walked into my cafe and ordered an Americano with that serious face, like coffee was a military operation. Coffee is a military operation. See? This is why I'm falling." He leaned forward, kissed me there in the ready room with the radio crackling and the heat humming and rain pattering against the windows. When he pulled back, he added, "Also, I finally figured out how to draw your hands." "Oh yeah?" "Yeah, they're not just competent. They're kind." That's what I was missing. Competence and kindness. He squeezed my hand. "That's who you are." By January, we'd stopped pretending this was casual. Noah had a drawer in my barracks locker. I had a key to his apartment. We'd met each other's people, my crew, his cafe regulars, my sister via video call, his parents during an awkward but ultimately okay dinner in Bellingham. "So this is real," my mom had said during a phone call, her voice carefully neutral. "Yeah, Mom, this is real. And you're happy?" I'd looked across the room at Noah, who was attempting to make dinner in my station's kitchen and failing spectacularly, laughing at his own incompetence while Rodriguez supervised with increasing alarm. "Yeah," I'd said. "I'm really happy." Then that's all I need to know. "Bring him home for Christmas next year. Your father wants to meet him." Small victories, daily progress. But the thing about rescue swimming is that the water doesn't care about your happiness. The ocean doesn't check your schedule. And when the alarm sounds at 0245 on a January morning, you go. Mayday call, vessel in distress, Strait of Juan de Fuca. Lieutenant Morrison's voice crackled through the station. "Chen, Rodriguez, you're up. I was dressed and geared in 4 minutes." Rodriguez and I had the pre-flight done in 6. By minute 8, we were wheels up into a night that was more wind than air. The Jayhawk bucking like it wanted to throw us back to Earth. 2 people in the water. Morrison's voice came through the headset. Cargo vessel reported seeing them go overboard from a fishing trawler. Estimate 20 minutes in water. Hypothermia timeline critical. 20 minutes in January water. Stage 2 hypothermia, maybe stage 3. Unconsciousness likely. This was going to be bad. We found them by searchlight. 2 orange specks in massive swells, life jackets barely keeping them afloat. I was in the water 30 seconds later, fighting current that wanted to pull me toward Canada. The first victim was a woman, maybe 50, unconscious but breathing. I got her in the basket, signaled the hoist. While Rodriguez brought her up, I swam for the second victim, male, younger, face down in the water. Not moving. I flipped him over, checked airway, started rescue breathing even as I signaled for the basket. His lips were blue. Core temp probably critical. I kept breathing for him. 2 breaths, check, 2 breaths, even as the basket descended. Getting him secured while keeping his airway open and fighting the current was like trying to solve a Rubik's Cube while drowning. But I'd done this. I'd trained for this. Muscle memory and procedure. We broke the surface together. In the helo, Rodriguez started chest compressions while I bagged him. The woman was already wrapped, shivering but alive. The man wasn't responding. "Come on," I heard myself say. "Come on, stay with me." Compression, breath, compression, breath. Rodriguez and I worked in perfect sync, the way we'd trained, while the Jayhawk screamed toward Harborview. At minute 4, he coughed. At minute 5, he was breathing on his own. At minute 7, his eyes opened. "Welcome back," I said, and my voice was shaking. We handed them off to the ER team at Oro 347. Both victims survived. Both walked out of the hospital 3 days later. I got back to the station at 0630, stripped my gear, went through the debrief on autopilot. Then I walked to Tidewater Roast. Noah took one look at my face and came around the counter. "Bad one?" he asked. "Good one," I corrected. "Both alive." But it was close. He poured me coffee without asking what I wanted. The Ethiopian natural, the good stuff. Then he pulled out his sketchbook, turned to a page, and showed me. It was my hands. Perfectly rendered. Every callus, every scar, every line. But also somehow more than that. Strength and gentleness captured in charcoal and paper. "I finished it last week," he said. I was waiting for the right moment. I looked at the drawing, at my own hands made beautiful through his eyes. "Can I keep this?" "It's yours. It's always been yours." I kissed him there in the empty cafe, morning light starting to filter through Seattle gray, and thought, This is what I save people for. For mornings like this. For chances to love someone. For the moments that make life worth the living. You okay? Noah asked when we broke apart. "I keep being," I said. "Me too," he replied and smiled. "Always with you. Me too." 6 months later, the Coast Guard promotion ceremony was held on a rare sunny Seattle day, the kind that makes tourists understand why people love this city. I stood in formation while Commander Williams pinned on my new rank insignia, Petty Officer 2nd Class. In the small crowd of families and friends, Noah stood with my crew, holding a thermos because of course he did. He'd closed the cafe for the afternoon, leaving a sign that said, "Gone to watch someone amazing get promoted." After the ceremony, after the handshakes and congratulations, I found him by the pier, the same spot where he'd asked me to dinner 6 months ago. "Congratulations. Petty Officer Chen," he said formally, then grinned. "That sounds very official and intimidating." "Don't let it fool you. I still can't make coffee to save my life." "Good thing you're dating a roaster." He handed me a cup. New blend. I've been working on it for weeks. "It's called Rescue." I took a sip. Complex, layered, strong, with a subtle sweetness underneath. "It's perfect. It's you," he corrected. "I was trying to capture you in coffee form." Around us, the station hummed with life. Boats heading out, crews prepping, the endless work of keeping people safe. Above us, seagulls wheeled in impossibly blue sky. And beside me, Noah Hayes, artist, coffee roaster, the man who'd almost drowned and instead found me, smiled with his whole face. "I love you," I said, because after 6 months it still felt important to say, "To name this thing we'd built. I love you too," he replied. "Even your terrible coffee-making skills." "Especially my terrible coffee-making skills," I corrected. "Especially those," he agreed, and kissed me there on the pier in front of God and the Coast Guard and anyone who cared to look. I was 23 years old. I saved people from drowning for a living. And I'd found someone who saved me right back. That's not a bad story. That's not bad at all.